Marcus Allen sat in his corner office, the late afternoon sun filtering through the tall glass windows, casting a golden glow on the sleek furniture and polished floors. From this height, he could see the city bustling below, people rushing to meetings, cars honking, and the world moving at its usual frantic pace. He had built this company from nothing, starting with a small investment and a big dream. Years of hard work, long nights, and smart decisions had made him the CEO of one of the most successful real estate firms in the city. But success, Marcus knew, could sometimes hide problems. On paper, everything looked perfect, profits were high, contracts were being signed, and clients were technically satisfied. Yet, something gnawed at him. A series of emails from clients complaining about rude behavior, missed appointments, and unprofessional conduct had been piling up in his inbox. He had read them and felt a tight knot in his chest every time. He prided himself on a company culture that valued integrity, respect, and customer service above all, but these complaints suggested that somewhere along the way, those values were being ignored. Marcus leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He thought about the employees he had hired personally, some of whom had been with him from the early days. How could people he trusted so much act in ways that hurt the company and its clients? He knew he needed to see the situation with his own eyes, to understand the truth beyond numbers and reports. The idea came to him slowly, almost like a whisper. What if he could experience the company as an ordinary employee? What if he went undercover, without anyone knowing who he really was, and saw how his team truly behaved? It would be uncomfortable, maybe even embarrassing, but Marcus felt that this was the only way to uncover the reality he suspected. He spent the evening planning. He chose a simple disguise, casual clothes that hid his CEO image, glasses that slightly altered his face, and a hat to avoid recognition. He even invented a fake name Mark Ellis and a backstory that made him seem like an ambitious newcomer hoping to learn the ropes. Every detail mattered. Marcus wanted to be invisible in his own company, just another employee among many. The next morning, he arrived at the office early. He parked in a side street instead of the reserved CEO spot, walked in without security escort, and greeted the receptionist casually. "Good morning," he said with a friendly smile. The receptionist, busy with her computer screen, barely noticed him. Marcus felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He had never walked among his employees as one of them. Normally, he saw them from a distance, through the lens of reports and meetings, but today would be different. As he moved through the office floor, Marcus observed the staff. People were typing quickly, answering phones, and moving from desk to desk with a sense of urgency. Some smiled and chatted with each other, while others seemed frustrated or distracted. Marcus found a quiet corner, set down his notebook, and waited for his manager to arrive, pretending to be a new hire just following instructions. The manager, a tall woman named Cynthia, came over and introduced herself warmly. She was the kind of person who made newcomers feel welcome, but Marcus noticed something subtle. Her eyes flickered with impatience whenever she spoke to certain employees. She assigned him a desk, handed him a stack of files, and gave a brief rundown of the day's tasks. Marcus nodded attentively, pretending to take in everything carefully. In reality, he was studying everything: how people spoke to each other, how they treated clients, and how seriously they took their responsibilities. At first, Marcus saw small things. A colleague on the phone interrupted a client repeatedly, cutting off questions to push for a quick sale. Another employee rolled her eyes when a coworker asked for help. Marcus wrote notes quietly, his heart sinking with each observation. These were small actions, but they added up to a pattern he could not ignore. The company he had built with such care was losing its soul. By mid-morning, Marcus had interacted with a few team members personally. He noticed their attitudes: some were polite and eager to help, others dismissive and careless. One young man, in particular, seemed to treat his job as a game, joking loudly while ignoring emails and calls. Marcus could see that clients' trust was at risk if this behavior continued. During a short coffee break, Marcus sat at the cafeteria table, listening to conversations around him. He overheard complaints about management decisions and disagreements about commissions. People laughed at mistakes and blamed others for problems. It struck him how little accountability existed in the team. Marcus had always believed that accountability was key to success. A company could make money, but if employees did not care about their work or the people they served, that success would crumble. As the morning turned into afternoon, Marcus continued his undercover journey. He followed instructions, answered phones, and even attempted a few basic tasks that required client interaction. Watching the employees closely, he realized how easily clients could be misled or neglected. Some employees were rushing through calls just to finish their targets, others were ignoring company policies to get faster results. Marcus felt a heavy weight in his chest. This was not just about numbers or profits, it was about trust, integrity, and the reputation of the company he loved. Despite the unsettling observations, Marcus noticed positive moments too. Some employees genuinely cared, helping clients patiently and guiding them through the complex real estate process. They reminded him why he had started the company in the first place, to provide excellent service and build lasting relationships. These employees gave him hope, but they were in the minority. By the end of the day, Marcus felt exhausted but enlightened. He returned to his small corner, reviewing his notes and reflecting on everything he had seen. He realized that his company needed change, and that change would be difficult. Some employees had to be held accountable, while others could be nurtured and rewarded. It was a delicate balance, but Marcus knew he had to act decisively to protect the company's future. That evening, Marcus returned home, still in his undercover persona, and thought about the next steps. He did not yet know exactly how he would reveal the truth or address the problems, but he felt clarity forming. By seeing the company from the ground level, he understood the real issues: attitudes, accountability, and professionalism. He had learned more in one day than he had in months of board meetings and reports. As he lay in bed, Marcus felt a mix of emotions: pride, disappointment, and determination. He knew the coming days would require difficult decisions. He also understood that the journey he had begun would not only test his leadership but also reshape the company for the better. Marcus fell asleep with a sense of purpose, ready to continue his undercover mission tomorrow and face the challenges ahead with courage and clarity. The next morning, Marcus Allen returned to the office, still dressed in his undercover disguise. He felt a mix of excitement and tension. Today, he would interact more with the employees, see how they handled clients, and observe the workflow in real situations. As Mark Ellis, he walked through the entrance, nodding politely to people who barely glanced at him. It was strange to move through the office unnoticed. He was usually greeted with respect, sometimes even admiration, as the CEO. Now, he felt invisible. Marcus settled at his temporary desk, a small workspace tucked in the corner. He glanced around the room, watching employees start their day. Phones rang constantly, fingers typed quickly, and conversations buzzed with urgency. Some people were focused and organized, while others seemed distracted or careless. Marcus made careful notes, recording every detail that could reveal the true work culture. By mid-morning, Marcus was given a small task involving a potential client. He picked up the phone and called politely, introducing himself according to his undercover identity. The client asked questions about a property, and Marcus tried to provide accurate information. However, he quickly noticed a colleague nearby, speaking loudly on another call, giving incorrect advice to a different client. The casual attitude and lack of attention were concerning. Marcus realized that clients were receiving inconsistent service depending on who they spoke to. As the day progressed, Marcus observed several interactions that made him pause. One employee, a man in his 30s named Derek, was impatient with clients. He interrupted them repeatedly, cutting off questions, and spoke as if he was rushing to leave. Marcus felt a sharp pang of disappointment. He had always believed that patience and respect were essential in real estate, but Derek treated his clients as if they were obstacles rather than people seeking guidance. Marcus also noticed another troubling pattern. Some employees were ignoring company rules to make quick sales. A young woman named Tanya bypassed a required step in the paperwork to close a deal faster. When a colleague questioned her, she shrugged and laughed, clearly unconcerned about the possible consequences. Marcus scribbled notes furiously, understanding that this behavior could damage the company's reputation if left unchecked. Despite these challenges, Marcus found moments of hope. A senior employee named Lisa, who had been with the company for many years, approached a new client with patience and professionalism. She explained every step carefully, answered questions with clarity, and ensured the client felt supported. Watching Lisa, Marcus remembered why he had started this company. There were still employees who cared deeply, who understood the importance of honesty, diligence, and client satisfaction. During lunch, Marcus sat in the cafeteria, blending in with other employees. Conversations buzzed around him, some discussing property deals, others complaining about management, and a few joking and laughing. Marcus listened carefully, trying to understand the unspoken culture. He realized that many employees felt disconnected from leadership. They seemed to act for personal gain rather than the company's long-term success. This realization was both frustrating and enlightening. Leadership was not just about giving instructions, it was about creating a culture where employees felt responsible, accountable, and valued. In the afternoon, Marcus was assigned to assist with a property showing. As he prepared documents, he overheard Derek speaking with another colleague. Derek gave misleading information to the client, exaggerating certain features of the property and downplaying others. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Misleading clients was not just unethical, it could lead to legal problems and harm the company's reputation. Marcus knew he would have to address this, but for now, he had to continue observing. Later, Marcus witnessed a minor argument between two employees. One accused the other of taking shortcuts, while the other defended himself defensively. The tension escalated quickly, and a manager had to step in. Marcus realized that conflicts like these were common, caused by lack of accountability and inconsistent standards. He noted down who tended to cause disruptions and who remained calm and professional. As the day went on, Marcus also noticed small positive actions that were easy to overlook. A junior employee helped a coworker understand a complex client request, explaining patiently despite being busy. Another employee stayed late to organize files that had been neglected for weeks. These moments showed Marcus that not all employees were negligent. Some were quietly dedicated, performing their duties with integrity even when no one was watching. Marcus's observations extended beyond the office. He accompanied employees on a few client calls and home visits. He saw firsthand how attitudes affected the client experience. Employees who rushed or ignored questions caused visible frustration, while those who were patient and professional earned trust and gratitude. Marcus realized that the difference between a thriving company and a failing one could hinge on these small actions. By mid-afternoon, Marcus felt mentally exhausted. Observing his team so closely was draining, but the insight he was gaining was invaluable. He could finally see how his company functioned at the ground level, where real clients interacted with employees. Reports and statistics could never reveal this human element: the pride, the carelessness, the dedication, and the indifference. One particularly revealing moment came when Marcus overheard a client complaint being dismissed casually by a staff member. The employee laughed, saying, "They'll get over it." Marcus's jaw tightened. This attitude represented exactly what he feared: a lack of respect for clients and disregard for professionalism. He made a detailed note, knowing this employee's behavior would need to be addressed later. As the workday ended, Marcus returned to his desk, reflecting on everything he had seen. He thought about the employees who were performing poorly and those who were doing well. He understood that change was necessary not to punish people unnecessarily, but to rebuild the company's culture and ensure its future. Marcus felt a deep sense of responsibility. The company was more than profits, it was built on trust, integrity, and human relationships. Before leaving, Marcus briefly spoke with Lisa, the senior employee who had impressed him that morning. He complimented her on her dedication and professionalism, subtly encouraging her to continue her exemplary work. Even in his undercover role, he wanted to recognize positive behavior. Encouragement and recognition could be as powerful as corrective action when it came to shaping culture. Walking out of the office that evening, Marcus felt a mix of emotions. He was frustrated with some employees, proud of others, and anxious about the difficult decisions ahead. He knew that what he had seen today was only the beginning. The company needed structure, accountability, and a reaffirmation of its core values. Marcus also realized that this undercover experiment was teaching him lessons about leadership that he could never have learned from behind a desk. On the way home, Marcus reflected on the day's events. He thought about the clients who had been misled or frustrated, the employees who were careless, and the ones who truly cared. He understood that these observations would guide his actions in the coming days. Marcus felt determined to protect the company's reputation and ensure that employees acted with integrity and professionalism. That night, as he prepared for bed, Marcus reviewed his notes once more. Each observation, each interaction, and each client experience had been carefully recorded. He was creating a map of the company's strengths and weaknesses, a blueprint for the changes that had to come. Though the day had been exhausting, he felt clarity and purpose. He knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, but he was ready to face them head-on, guided by the knowledge he had gained from seeing his employees through their own eyes. Marcus finally fell asleep with a quiet determination. He had seen both the best and worst of his team, and he understood that real leadership required action, accountability, and courage. The journey he had begun as Mark Ellis was far from over, but he felt confident that he was on the right path to restoring the company to the values and standards he had always envisioned. The following morning, Marcus Allen returned to the office with a sense of purpose. He knew today would be even more revealing than the previous day. As Mark Ellis, he felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. His first day undercover had shown him the cracks in his company, but he suspected there were deeper problems he had not yet discovered. As he entered the office, he noticed employees moving quickly through their tasks. Phones rang constantly, and computers hummed as people typed emails and prepared documents. Marcus settled into his temporary desk, observing closely. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on him. Every decision he would make in the coming days would affect real people, the employees he had hired, the clients depending on the company, and the reputation he had spent years building. By mid-morning, Marcus was involved in a client meeting. He observed the interaction between a young employee named Kevin and a potential home buyer. Kevin seemed confident on the surface, but Marcus noticed subtle mistakes. He skipped explaining some important clauses in the contract and exaggerated property features. The client appeared confused but hesitant to ask questions. Marcus's heart sank. Misleading clients was a serious issue, and Kevin seemed unaware of the consequences of his actions. Marcus also noticed rising tension among employees. A co-worker loudly criticized a colleague for making a mistake on a property listing. Voices were raised, and the office buzzed with frustration. Marcus realized that these conflicts were not isolated incidents, they reflected a lack of teamwork, communication, and respect. He made detailed notes about who contributed to the tension and who tried to mediate calmly. Understanding the dynamics of the team was crucial to knowing who could be trusted and who could not. During a break, Marcus overheard employees gossiping about management decisions. They complained about changes in commission structures and policies, some exaggerating facts to justify their mistakes. Marcus realized that some employees were deflecting responsibility rather than learning from errors. This behavior, he knew, was dangerous for the company. In real estate, accountability and honesty were essential. Marcus felt a pang of disappointment, knowing he would have to make difficult decisions soon. As the day went on, Marcus was assigned to shadow another employee during a property showing. He watched as a man named Derek spoke confidently to the client but intentionally omitted key details about the property's condition. Marcus's jaw tightened. This was more than negligence, it was deception. He took careful notes, knowing that such behavior could harm both the client and the company. Marcus also noticed employees taking shortcuts in other ways. Some ignored internal processes, skipping important checks to close deals faster. A young woman, Tanya, was again careless with paperwork, relying on others to correct her mistakes. Marcus felt frustrated. The lack of consistency and professionalism was alarming. The company could not continue to operate successfully if such behavior went unchecked. Yet, amid the chaos, there were moments of integrity. Lisa, the senior employee who had impressed Marcus earlier, continued to demonstrate professionalism. She patiently guided clients through the property process, double-checked documents, and offered advice to colleagues. Her actions reminded Marcus that there were still employees who cared deeply about the company's values. These employees, he realized, would be the foundation for rebuilding the company culture. In the afternoon, a particularly challenging situation arose. A client called with a complaint about a property that had been misrepresented. Marcus watched as the assigned employee, Kevin, struggled to handle the situation. He avoided responsibility, blaming the paperwork system and other colleagues. The client grew frustrated and demanded to speak to a manager. Marcus's heart raced. This was exactly the kind of incident he had feared. He had to witness it firsthand to understand the severity of the problem. Marcus stepped back and observed carefully. He noticed how other employees reacted, some avoided involvement, while others offered advice quietly. The lack of coordinated effort and accountability highlighted a major weakness in the team. Marcus realized that the company's success depended not only on individual performance but on teamwork, professionalism, and consistent adherence to company values. During another client interaction, Marcus noticed subtle but damaging behavior. One employee dismissed a client's question about property conditions, answering vaguely and moving quickly to close the deal. The client appeared hesitant and unsure, and Marcus could see the trust being eroded. He understood that even small actions like these could have long-term consequences for the company's reputation. As the day progressed, Marcus observed patterns of behavior that confirmed his worst fears. Some employees were more concerned about personal gain than client satisfaction. They skipped steps, misled clients, and ignored company rules to maximize their own commissions. Marcus realized that the problem was systemic. The company needed not just minor adjustments but a serious reorganization to align employees with its core values. One moment stood out vividly. Marcus witnessed an employee openly mocking a colleague for taking extra time to help a client. The laughter echoed through the office, and several employees joined in. Marcus felt a mix of anger and disappointment. Such behavior was toxic, creating an environment where professionalism and empathy were undervalued. He knew that employees who acted this way could not remain in positions of trust. Despite the negative experiences, Marcus continued to see hope in the right places. A few employees consistently went above and beyond, demonstrating patience, attention to detail, and respect for clients. Marcus realized that these individuals were the backbone of the company. By recognizing and rewarding them, he could reinforce positive behavior and set an example for the rest of the team. As the afternoon drew to a close, Marcus reflected on everything he had witnessed. The company was at a crossroads. Employees' behavior varied widely, from careless and deceptive to professional and dedicated. The differences were stark, and the contrast could not be ignored. Marcus knew that action was required to protect the company's reputation and ensure long-term success. He also reflected on his leadership. Marcus understood that reports, statistics, and meetings could only reveal so much. To truly understand his company, he needed to experience it firsthand, walking among his employees as one of them. This undercover experiment had given him insight into the culture, the strengths, and the weaknesses of the team. Before leaving the office, Marcus made a final observation. He noticed that some employees were genuinely frustrated with the behavior of others. They quietly corrected mistakes, offered help, and tried to maintain professionalism despite the chaos around them. These employees, Marcus realized, would be key allies in rebuilding the company culture. They had the right attitude but needed support and recognition to thrive. Walking to his temporary parking spot, Marcus felt mentally exhausted but more determined than ever. He had seen the best and worst of his team, and he understood the work that lay ahead. Tomorrow, he would continue his undercover observations, focusing on identifying the employees who consistently violated company standards and those who could be trusted to help restore integrity and professionalism. That night, Marcus reviewed his notes carefully. Each interaction, each mistake, and each act of integrity had been recorded. He began to form a plan not just for corrective action, but for a company culture that would reward honesty, accountability, and hard work. Marcus knew that change would be difficult and that some employees might resist, but he was committed to making the hard decisions necessary to protect the company's future. As he lay in bed, Marcus felt a mix of emotions: disappointment in those who failed to meet standards, pride in those who did, and determination to act decisively. He realized that leadership was more than managing numbers; it was about guiding people, enforcing values, and creating an environment where everyone could succeed. Marcus fell asleep with a quiet resolve. He had learned valuable lessons from his undercover work. The next day, he would confront the breaking points he had observed, facing the behavior that threatened the company's integrity. He knew the days ahead would be challenging, but he was ready. Marcus understood that true leadership sometimes required difficult decisions, and he was prepared to do what was necessary to safeguard the company he had built from the ground up. The following morning, Marcus Allen entered the office with a calm but determined demeanor. Today would be different. Today, he would no longer be just an observer. He had gathered enough information from his undercover work to see which employees were performing well, which were careless, and which were actively harming the company's reputation. The day started like any other, but Marcus carried with him the knowledge that a major turning point was about to come. As he walked through the office, employees greeted him politely, still unaware that Mark Ellis was actually the CEO, Marcus Allen. He settled into his temporary desk but noticed something unusual. A few employees glanced curiously at him, perhaps sensing his growing confidence or the way he seemed to observe everything so carefully. Marcus made a mental note. Even subtle shifts in behavior could reveal attitudes that were otherwise hidden. By mid-morning, Marcus called a short meeting with his manager, Cynthia. He explained that he wanted to review certain client interactions, team performance, and operational procedures. Cynthia nodded, still unaware of his true identity, and prepared reports for him. Marcus carefully studied these documents, matching them to the observations he had made over the past 2 days. The discrepancies were clear: some employees consistently underperformed, took shortcuts, or ignored clients' needs. Others exceeded expectations, demonstrating professionalism, patience, and dedication. As the meeting ended, Marcus realized it was time. He would call a company-wide meeting, a gathering where he would reveal the truth. He felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Employees would be shocked, confused, and perhaps even upset. Some might feel embarrassed, while others could be defensive. Marcus knew he needed to handle the moment with honesty, authority, and clarity. By late morning, employees had gathered in the main conference room. Conversations buzzed quietly as people speculated about the unexpected meeting. Marcus stepped forward, clearing his throat to draw attention. The room quieted almost immediately, eyes turning toward him. He began speaking in a calm, measured tone, explaining that he had spent the past few days observing the company from a new perspective. He talked about the importance of accountability, professionalism, and integrity, laying the foundation for what he was about to reveal. Then came the moment of truth. Marcus removed his disguise and glasses, letting his employees see the face they had worked with countless times in emails, board meetings, and company announcements. Gasps filled the room as people realized that Mark Ellis was, in fact, Marcus Allen, their CEO. Shock, disbelief, and confusion spread across the room. Some employees whispered nervously to one another, while others simply stared, unsure how to react. Marcus held up his hand to calm the room. "I know this is a surprise," he said. "But I felt it was necessary to see how the company truly operates, how each of you interacts with clients and with one another. I have observed behaviors that concern me deeply, and I also recognize those who consistently demonstrate professionalism and dedication." He paused, letting his words sink in. Marcus then outlined the issues he had observed over the past 2 days. He spoke of employees who ignored clients, misrepresented properties, skipped important steps, and caused conflicts with co-workers. He highlighted the consequences of such actions not just for the company, but for clients, colleagues, and the team as a whole. The employees listened quietly, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Marcus also took the time to acknowledge employees who had demonstrated honesty, dedication, and teamwork. He named individuals who had gone above and beyond to ensure clients were satisfied and who had helped colleagues succeed. He emphasized that their behavior represented the values the company was built upon and that they would play an important role in shaping the company's culture moving forward. After laying out the observations, Marcus addressed the employees whose performance and behavior had been problematic. He spoke firmly but fairly, explaining that certain actions were unacceptable and could not continue. He gave specific examples of mistakes, negligence, and dishonesty, making it clear that accountability was essential. Marcus allowed those employees a chance to respond, but many struggled to justify their behavior. Some offered excuses, while others remained silent. The atmosphere in the room was tense. Employees who had been careless or unprofessional were confronted with the reality of their actions. Marcus's honesty left little room for denial. At the same time, those who had consistently demonstrated integrity felt relief and validation. Marcus's message was clear: the company valued honesty, dedication, and professionalism above all else. Those who failed to meet these standards would face consequences, while those who upheld them would be recognized and rewarded. Marcus then explained the next steps. He outlined plans for training, mentorship, and support to help employees improve. However, he also emphasized that repeated or serious violations of company standards could not be tolerated. The balance of accountability and support was essential to building a strong, ethical, and professional organization. Employees who understood this and committed to improvement would thrive, while those unwilling to change would not be able to continue with the company. The conversation shifted to the impact on clients. Marcus described how careless behavior, shortcuts, and dishonesty had affected client trust and satisfaction. He reminded the employees that real estate is not just about sales, it's about relationships, communication, and respect. By failing clients, employees were not only risking their own careers but also damaging the reputation and future of the company. As the meeting concluded, Marcus asked for feedback and questions. A few employees spoke up, admitting mistakes, asking for guidance, or expressing concern about how to improve. Others remained silent, clearly uncomfortable but attentive. Marcus listened carefully, answering questions honestly and encouraging employees to reflect on their actions. He wanted this moment to be a turning point, not just a reprimand. Once the meeting ended, Marcus met briefly with Cynthia, his manager, to review individual employee performance and plan corrective actions. They discussed which employees needed additional training, which could be reassigned, and which would face termination. Marcus felt a heavy responsibility but understood that decisive action was necessary to protect the company and its values. The afternoon was spent following up with employees individually. Marcus spoke privately with those who had shown integrity, praising their efforts and encouraging them to continue setting a positive example. These conversations boosted morale and reassured employees that their hard work was recognized and valued. Conversely, Marcus met with employees whose performance and behavior had been problematic. He explained the consequences clearly, emphasizing that some would be let go. These conversations were difficult but necessary. Marcus approached each one with fairness and professionalism, listening to explanations but remaining firm in his decision. His goal was not to punish but to ensure accountability and restore the company's culture. By the end of the day, Marcus reflected on the meeting and the impact of his revelations. The office had been shaken, but in a way that opened the door for meaningful change. Employees now understood that leadership demanded integrity, accountability, and professionalism. They also saw that Marcus valued honesty and dedication, and that he was willing to take action to uphold the company's standards. Walking through the office before leaving, Marcus noticed a subtle shift. Some employees who had been indifferent or careless seemed more attentive and reflective. Those who had been loyal and dedicated appeared more confident and motivated. Marcus realized that transparency, honesty, and accountability could inspire change, even when it was uncomfortable. At home that evening, Marcus reviewed his notes once again. He had taken detailed records of the meeting, employee reactions, and plans for corrective action. He knew that the next steps, implementing changes, training employees, and making personnel decisions, would be challenging, but he felt confident. The company was now at a turning point, and he was determined to guide it back to the values it was founded upon. As Marcus lay in bed that night, he reflected on the lessons he had learned. Leadership was more than making decisions or managing profits. It was about understanding people, observing behavior, and taking action when necessary. By going undercover, he had gained insights that would shape the company's future. He felt a quiet sense of pride and purpose, knowing that he was taking the right steps to ensure the company's long-term success. Marcus fell asleep with clarity and determination. He had faced the truth, revealed it to his team, and set the stage for meaningful change. The coming days would bring challenges, but he was ready to take responsibility, enforce accountability, and rebuild the company culture with honesty, professionalism, and integrity. The following morning, Marcus Allen arrived at the office with a sense of purpose and determination. The previous day had been transformative. He had revealed his true identity as CEO and confronted the employees about their behavior. Some were shocked, some embarrassed, and some defensive, but now it was time for action. Today, Marcus would follow through on the decisions he had carefully considered over the past days. He entered the office quietly, observing the employees as they worked. Some avoided eye contact, still unsure of what to expect. Others, who had demonstrated dedication and professionalism, seemed more confident, as if recognizing that the company now had a clearer direction. Marcus made his way to his temporary desk, feeling the weight of responsibility. The company's future depended on the choices he was about to make. By mid-morning, Marcus called for individual meetings with employees whose performance and behavior had been concerning. One by one, he spoke with them privately, addressing specific incidents he had observed. He explained how their actions affected clients, co-workers, and the overall success of the company. Some employees apologized, acknowledging their mistakes and expressing a desire to improve. Marcus listened carefully, offering guidance but remaining firm. However, others were less willing to accept responsibility. They made excuses, blamed circumstances, or simply refused to acknowledge the seriousness of their actions. Marcus realized that these individuals could not continue in the company if it was to maintain its integrity and professional standards. He felt a pang of sadness. Firing employees was never easy, but he knew it was necessary for the company's long-term health. As the meetings continued, Marcus also took time to speak with employees who had consistently shown dedication and professionalism. He praised their efforts, encouraging them to continue setting an example for others. He explained that their work mattered, that the company relied on their integrity and commitment, and that they would play a key role in rebuilding the culture of the team. Marcus's words brought relief and motivation to these employees, reinforcing their sense of purpose and value within the company. By mid-afternoon, Marcus began the difficult task of letting go of employees whose actions had been consistently harmful. He approached each meeting with fairness and transparency. He explained the reasons for the termination, highlighting specific behaviors and incidents. While some employees were understandably upset, Marcus remained calm and professional. He emphasized that these decisions were not personal but necessary to uphold the company's values and protect its clients and team. For the employees who were leaving, Marcus offered support in finding new opportunities. He provided recommendations where appropriate, and encouraged them to reflect on their actions and learn from the experience. Marcus believed that even difficult decisions could be handled with respect and dignity. He wanted to ensure that employees left with clarity and a chance to improve, rather than resentment. After completing the difficult task of terminations, Marcus called a company-wide meeting to address the remaining employees. He explained the actions that had been taken and reinforced the importance of professionalism, accountability, and integrity. He shared his vision for the company moving forward, emphasizing a culture of respect, teamwork, and dedication to clients. The employees listened attentively, many showing a renewed sense of purpose and commitment. Marcus also introduced a plan for ongoing training and mentorship. Employees would receive guidance to improve skills, enhance client interactions, and reinforce company values. Marcus made it clear that while mistakes could happen, repeated negligence or unethical behavior would not be tolerated. This transparent approach created a sense of fairness and clarity, helping employees understand expectations and responsibilities. Throughout the day, Marcus continued to interact with employees individually, offering encouragement and advice. He emphasized that their work mattered, that they were valued, and that their dedication would help the company succeed. The atmosphere in the office began to shift. Employees who had been uncertain or disengaged started to focus more intently on their tasks. Team members supported each other, reflecting the positive culture Marcus aimed to cultivate. By late afternoon, Marcus took a moment to observe the office. The environment felt different, quieter, more focused, and more professional. Employees were attentive to clients, careful with their tasks, and considerate of each other. Marcus realized that the actions he had taken were beginning to have an impact. Change was not immediate, but it was happening. The company was moving closer to the vision he had always had, one built on integrity, professionalism, and respect. Marcus also spent time reviewing client interactions and feedback. He noticed a clear improvement in communication and service. Employees who had previously struggled with attention to detail were now more careful and thorough. Clients were treated with respect and patience. Marcus felt a sense of pride. His company was slowly regaining the reputation it deserved. As the day drew to a close, Marcus gathered the remaining employees for a final meeting. He spoke candidly about the challenges they had faced, the actions that had been necessary, and the importance of maintaining high standards. He encouraged employees to continue supporting one another, learning from mistakes, and striving for excellence. Marcus emphasized that the company's success depended on collective effort, honesty, and dedication. Walking through the office one last time before leaving, Marcus observed the employees at their desks. There was a sense of renewed energy and focus. Conversations were professional, interactions were respectful, and tasks were completed with care. Marcus felt satisfaction knowing that the company was on a better path, guided by clear values and expectations. That evening, Marcus reflected on the events of the past days. He thought about the lessons he had learned through his undercover experiment. Observing employees firsthand had revealed not just mistakes and negligence, but also dedication, loyalty, and integrity. Marcus understood that true leadership required courage, fairness, and decisiveness. It was about recognizing talent, addressing issues, and fostering a culture where everyone could succeed. He also considered the employees who had been let go. While it was difficult to say goodbye, Marcus believed the experience could be a turning point for them as well. He hoped they would reflect on their actions, learn from their mistakes, and find opportunities to grow in their future endeavors. Marcus felt a quiet sense of responsibility not just for the company, but for the people whose lives were affected by his decisions. Finally, Marcus thought about the employees who remained. These individuals were committed, professional, and capable of helping the company reach new heights. He felt optimistic about the future, knowing that a strong team could achieve remarkable results. Marcus made a mental note to continue mentoring, supporting, and recognizing employees, ensuring that the positive changes would be sustained over time. As he prepared for bed that night, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The past days had been challenging, emotionally and mentally, but the company was now stronger, more focused, and more aligned with his vision. He had faced the reality of his business, addressed difficult issues, and taken decisive action to protect its integrity and reputation. Marcus reflected on the journey he had undertaken from a successful CEO observing complaints in his inbox to an undercover employee discovering the truth firsthand. The experience had given him insight, perspective, and clarity. He realized that leadership was not just about making decisions from a distance, it was about understanding people, observing behavior, and acting with fairness and courage. As he lay down to sleep, Marcus felt a sense of purpose and determination. The company had faced challenges, but it had emerged stronger. Employees who demonstrated integrity and dedication would continue to grow, while the culture of accountability and professionalism would guide the organization into the future. Marcus knew that maintaining this momentum would require ongoing effort, but he was ready. He closed his eyes, confident that the company he had built would thrive. The difficult decisions had been made, the necessary changes implemented, and a new chapter had begun. Marcus Allen, the CEO who had gone undercover to understand the truth, had ensured that his company was now prepared to succeed ethically, professionally, and sustainably. The office would never be the same again. Employees had witnessed accountability, honesty, and transparency in action. They had learned the importance of professionalism, respect, and dedication. Marcus knew that the lessons from this experience would resonate for years to come, shaping a company culture that would stand the test of time.